Shannon Sharp got another hit on his hands. I feel like he could stop doing interviews for the rest of the year because this Keith Lee interview was so good. I feel like it was a great bookend. You started with Cat Williams, you end with Keith Lee. You don't have to do nothing else. He's had a plethora of really good interviews this year. First of all, whoever's on the production team deserves a raise because they had this man out here in a Sprinter van with Keith Lee, a very luxurious Sprinter van, might I add. And they started the interview on a food tour, which was great. And it wasn't like they wasted any time. Like, they went riding, they were going on the tour, but they also started that interview in the van. One of the first topics they discussed was that Atlanta situation that Keith found himself in.
I'm so happy you asking this. Atlanta had really good food. Atlanta had a good food scene. It's just you have to be somebody in order to get food. Do you have to name drop when you go to Atlanta and get food?
Nah, because I really don't go. The places that I go to, they kind of know me. So when I call and they're going to take care of me. But I ain't. No.
But do you feel like if they didn't know Shannon Sharp?
No, hell no, I ain't getting in. They just be like, hell no.
And that's exactly why I say we do the food tour for people that really want to jump on a plane and just go get food.
Yeah.
If we go to a place specifically because I'm Keith Lee and we go eat at the best restaurant and people want to jump on a plane and go try that spot,
they're not going to be able to get the service.
They're not going to be able to get it. Not only the service, they're not going to be able to get the food.
Right.
They're going to go in there and they're like, oh, we ain't got no bookings for the rest of the day,
Right.
this, that, third. But let Shannon Sharp walk in. We got 6 tables is wide open. We about to clean them right now. You get the fresh food. So that's one of the main catalysts of why we do our
So it's not so much the food, it's the service.
Absolutely.
In order to get
Absolutely.
the food.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
Are you surprised you got so much blowback for when you critiqued Atlanta and you let them know that it's not so much the food, it's the service? If you're not somebody, you're not getting in there. They're always crowded, they're always booked, and they only treat people that of influence.
Was I surprised? No, because it's like ripping a Band-Aid off of something that people didn't know was a scar, right? If you from there and you was born and raised in that environment, you don't know no better. Right. You think that that's what the food scene is, and you think that's what culture is, right? Because that's part of Atlanta's culture.
Right.
I just came from a perspective of somebody who wasn't from there and somebody who was experiencing it for the first time. The death threats and whatnot, was I surprised about that? Yeah.
Damn.
That was the first time I ever experienced something like that.
People taking food that serious?
Oh, it's bad. It's real. Even in DC, we got a death threat from a guy who's a rapper out there. And he talking about next time he come, instead of reviewing food, we gonna review his life or something like that. No. We just eating food, man. Yeah, it's like, my opinion isn't the end all be all. No. I understand that everybody has a different opinion on food, and I always say that, but I get how the internet gets too. And I don't blame them because people are prideful in where they come from.
Right.
And people have a lot of love and nostalgia in the city that they come from, and they feel personally attacked. And I want to put it on the record right now that when we go for the food tour, it's not to find what the best food is. It's specifically to highlight the restaurants that have great food, great customer service, but can need marketing and don't get the marketing specifically because either they're in a food desert to where a lot of people don't have access to the food that they would need or want, or 2, it's a location-based place, or 3, it's a place where the owners have put so much into the restaurant itself that they don't have the time or the money to market. Atlanta had good brunch. Yeah. Atlanta had good brunch for sure. Yeah.
You call hell getting in there for brunch.
Yeah. Atlanta, and I don't want that to be mistaken at all. Atlanta has really good food.
You're not saying they don't have good food.
Yeah, Atlanta has really
good brunch
food.
Or anything. You're just saying the customer service,
I
the
really
way.
like the people in Atlanta. I love how many of us is out there. I love the wealth that's out there and the things that those kids that are from there are exposed to when it comes to black wealth, when it comes to black excellence, when it comes to a community that's built around us, for us. I never want that to be lost in translation. When it comes to the mecca of what we do and the highlight of us is Atlanta. But at the same time, if you ain't got a certain status or a certain million followers, you better cook at home. For sure.
Or eat before you leave at home because the wait gonna be a minute.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they had this conversation because I'm glad Keith got to clear it up. He got to give a really good statement here. He got to talk about the fact that he found really good food in Atlanta. And then he said, I also found an issue with some customer service problems. I feel like he gave a fair assessment. I could say that as a person who lives in Metro Atlanta, and I've also experienced it, and some of my friends have experienced it throughout the city. He didn't say that he hated Atlanta. He just said there's some stuff that they need to work on. Sometimes we got to get out of our feelings, man. So they up in this van, and they are murdering this food. Like Shannon was killing those oxtails and fufu. He was just slurping and sopping stuff up, and he was just like, yeah, this is some good stuff right here, man. I've had more tender. It was so funny listening to them. I love how Shannon is just himself in these interviews. Like, he was talking about country foods because, he from South Georgia. So he was like, hey, you ever had raccoon, squirrel? He said, we used to eat turtle, possum, all that kind of stuff. And Keith was like, I would try it. He said, take me down to where you from so I could try it like that. Let me tell you, I was about 10, 15 minutes into the show, and they had me starving because between the oxtails and then this fire-looking breakfast sandwich they pulled out, I was about ready to risk it all. That sandwich looked so good, I promise you. I would have to work my way up to it though, because it would probably make me sick, because I'm absolutely vegan. But baby, the eyes see what the eyes see. Now about 20-something minutes into the episode, they go back to where it all began in his condo. And this is why I say the production team need that extra money, because they coming through with all the looks. They had the Paw Patrol chair sitting there. They are in those details. And that's when the interview got deeper and more intimate. Keith discussed this as the place where he was able to hone his skills and grow that confidence that he needed to be able to talk on camera. Keith talked about his childhood, talked about how he was bucking against authority, how he was quote unquote homeless, but really not homeless because he just didn't want to follow his father's rules. But it also talked about him taking accountability for his actions. He took accountability for his relationship with his parents being rocky. A lot of times people blame everything on other people, but we have a role to play in some of the things. Actually, most of the things that go on in our lives. Keith was like, nah, I was bad. He even talked about his brother being locked up, and he said my brother was locked up because he bad. He also acknowledged that he was a negative influence in his brother's life at times. He even talked about being down bad, and this part right here, oh, if I could cry, this would be the part that I would cry on.
After that fight, I was curled up in a ball in that bed. Goddamn, I'm about to cry. I was curled up in a ball, and I remember her coming over the top of me and being like, everything is gonna be okay. It was so hard for me to see because I'm staring at my 2-year-old. I'm staring at her belly. I had no sense of what's about to happen. I thought that food reviews could do something, or I wouldn't even say, I'm lying to myself. I had no idea what food reviews were gonna do.
You definitely didn't think it would take off like this.
Never in a million years. I just vividly remember having a conversation with her and she telling me I was gonna be okay and she was rubbing my back. I stood up and I was like, I'm about to make something happen. I'm about to go do something. I don't know what it is, but whatever is calling me, whatever that voice is telling me to do, I'm about to do it. And I've listened to it before, and I'm in a position where I'm losing contracts. And when I say lost a contract, Shannon, that contract was worth, I think I had like $100,000 up on the contract. That's money.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, bro, what? I was like, all right. I ain't got to fight. Just give me $100,000. Right. In my mind. But like I said, God willingly, maybe 6 months after all of that happened, and like I said, I was sitting in the chair, I started doing food reviews. Wingstop reached out to me, and they gave me a contract that was worth the exact same amount that contract was worth for Bellator.
Wow. That encouragement meant the world to him. He said he was going to figure something out, and he did. I honestly love the way he talks about his wife.
We was eating Roberto's and sharing it. Somebody broke into the house. Somebody broke into our car maybe a week after that, and they left somebody's wallet on the floor. And I'm thinking, oh, I found the person who broke into the car. I go search the wallet. I find the ID. I'm walking around the complex asking everybody who this man was. I end up finding him. It was a guy who stayed in the complex. I walk up ready to fight. I take my shirt off. I'm running up to him. He got a gun on his hip. I'm like, I'm not thinking about none of that. He come tell me, he like, somebody broke into my house, into my car, took my wallet, put it in your car on purpose so you can come down here and do this. He was ready to blow my head off, Shannon. For her to be with me in that moment, it meant like, no matter what happens, she see me at my worst. Like, worst is understatement. She seen me to a point where like, financially, I was at my worst, physically, spiritually, mentally. No matter what happens with social media, with the money, I always know I got a dog with me. Like, I think it's a different feeling when you walk in a room with a blue nose and you know you got somebody protecting you.
They're gonna ride.
You got somebody that's gonna ride with you no matter what. Mm-hmm. It's like, I've already seen it. Like, I've seen it from the very beginning. Man, I owe my life to that woman.
He talks about so many different situations that they were in when they were down at the bottom. And he said, I owe that woman my life. I don't even look at nobody else. I love reading comments. And I was looking at the comment section on the video regarding this situation with him and his wife. And a lot of the women were like, yeah, I did that for a man and he did not stay with me. And then somebody else was like, same. Other people like, oh, that don't really work for a lot of us. And it's unfortunate to see so many comments like that. And if I may give some encouragement, I would say, please continue to be yourself. The next person might actually see your value. Don't let your ex steal your essence on the way out. I love how they talked about the process of how they do the food reviews, how they get a ninja to sneak in there to do all the getting the food so they don't know who is coming to pick it up, and how they come in and do that whole secret shopper kind of thing. And then they bring back whatever they have to report to Keith. I mean, they really talked about so much. I mean, they talked about the fact that Keith and them, they missed out on $1 million deal with a major fast food company because he didn't really like the company like that. And he was also talking about survivor's remorse because he bought his first house. He's the first person in his family to own a home. And he was like, man, it put me in a deep depression and all that kind of stuff. And what brought him out of that depression was the fact that his daughter learned how to ride her bike in that yard. He also talked about that BET Awards situation that him and Taraji were in. And then he was talking about the behind the scenes with the production and how things were kind of like moved around and it was kind of like a whirlwind and how that controversy came to pass. One of the biggest moments, if not the biggest moments in the interview, was when he talked about his dad and him butting heads, but then he almost committed self-elimination and his dad saw him before he could complete it and pulled him down and told him how much he loved him.
This is why I take my hat off to him. After everything we just went through, out of all of the conversations he just had of me not being his son no more, and we just in he got to take care of me till I'm 18 kind of relationship, he came, picked me up, took me off them ties, and told me how much he loved me, and that's why I'm here today.
Wow.
I would have been gone, Shannon.
Was that the first time your dad ever told you he loved you?
First time he said it like that. First time he said it in a way of like, I want you here. Like, I understand what we going through, and I understand that this is just a phase. He might have said it before, but that's the first time where I was like, oh, okay, I got you. Like, I understand. Now I'm living for something different than just myself.
And that was the first, and that completely changed your relationship with your father.
Completely, yeah, absolutely. It was like, when I say to a point where it was awkward after that, like, he just saw his son try to take his own life. So it was like, it can't just get back to normal immediately, right? But there was a level of like, we both got to try for this. Like,
them. And that changed their relationship forever. So now they like best friends, but they had to work through some stuff back then. So it was just such a really good moment. One thing I love about Keith is the fact that he can pinpoint where he said, oh, this was the moment where stuff changed. Like he saw this moment with his dad and was like, oh, he really does love me. It's almost like he was missing something. And that moment gave him everything he needed. He sort of did something similar with his wife because he was looking for her in other women while they weren't together. And let's talk about the fact that Shannon was also getting reviewed by Keith Lee. Keith Lee was like, oh, you are interviewing, bro. Like, you are very good at this. And true enough, other people do this in Shannon's interviews. But what's so funny is Keith also rates everything. So like it just makes it funnier that he's giving instant feedback constantly throughout the interview. And I guess a lot of people don't expect this from Shannon because he's not really a journalist, but he does ask really good questions. His research team be doing hella work. And if we really want to take it there, them intros be fire too. And I'm not going to say much else about the interview. I actually want people to go watch the whole thing. It's about 2:44 and it's worth the watch. To the people that actually did watch it already, what did y'all think of it? Did y'all see anything that just really stood out to you?